So, my presentation is about how technology has changed the fashion industry. So, I'm going to be just giving some different insights from the beginning of fashion until how technology has worked its way up and how it's improved and how it's also improved fashion. So, from the beginning of fashion, it is said to believe that the first people on earth were Adam and Eve, and after they sinned and felt that they needed to cover themselves, that was the first instant of when fashion was created. Um, then we go into the more developed beginning of time, so when Homo sapiens existed and how for survival they used certain things to um, cover and protect, and how that was seen as fashion. And then as time goes on, modern humans and how they use fashion. So, in the beginning, it was said that Adam and Eve were the first people created and were the first to be on Earth. So, through fashion, they used body coverings, and that was their definition of fashion. Then we go into the Homo sapiens. Basically, they were the first people, first couple of people on Earth after Adam and Eve. There was a lot of survival, so they needed to survive. Through survival, there was lots of hunting and gathering, and how fashion impacted them was through that hunting. So not only did they hunt for food, but they also hunted for skin and for fur. They needed to cover up, especially if they lived in cold environments. So the fur helped them stay warm, and the skin was very strong and sturdy, so that also helped to keep the heat inside and to keep them staying warm, and also to protect just in case any animals attacked or any wars happened. And then as modern humans started to form, so as the earth started to age, I guess you can say, in the 1920s, that was a big move with the fashion industry. Women started to rebel. They were able to just be who they were, and that was through fashion. So socially, they were able to be themselves. They were able to be free. They started to cut their hair shorter. Their dresses started to get shorter. So through what they wore, it kind of helped develop their personalities, and they were very social. An example would be flappers. Their dresses were very fringy, and they danced a lot, and that was kind of part of the social aspect, I guess you can say, of the 1920s. And then economically, how that fashion impacted was through the different living classes. So if you were high class, you were probably going to be wearing expensive wear. Women would have more jewelry, men would be wearing suits, and that also would show that they were not just wealthy, but that maybe they worked in a more higher workplace. And then politically, women were not able to vote until this time, and there was lots of protests going on, lots of movements, and through these movements, they used different costumes to represent who they were. There was a group that would dress wearing different things to get their point across. I believe they were called something with angels, and with that, they dressed as angels and they protested against for women's rights. So then that was all through more of meat and fabrics and stuff like that. But as the world started to develop, printing became a thing. It kind of dates back to way back in the BC times, but that was more so of like handmade printing, I guess you can say. So basically, they used blocks and stencils, and that helped keep their patterns consistent. And then it also just helps give the fashion industry different styles, so that it never runs out and you don't always seem like you're making the same type of clothing. So this is an image that isn't so, I guess it's more advanced, you can say, but it shows a different pattern. There is consistency in that pattern, and there's different inks that were used to keep it vibrant and make it a little bit different than a normal print, you would say. And the process of printing, so there are so many different processes as we started to advance in what we use in our technology. So did printing. So two different styles I wanted to talk about was hand screen printing, which is a bit more older than digital printing. So hand screen is, there's an image where there's the two women. Basically what you do is you pick a pattern of what you want, and then you use a stencil to create that pattern onto a fabric, and then there's this film that you put on top of your ink and your fabric. So once you use that ink to stencil out what you want, you pull that film forward and over the fabric, and then that helps it sink into the fabric and create that print onto the fabric. So it's a bit more of an older style. And then we have the digital printing, which is something that is really starting to form now. It's really big in the fashion industry right now, and there's this whole idea of how it's going to change the fashion industry, and that happens through a special printer. Basically, you use a Photoshop or an Illustrator to help form the garment that you want, and then through the Photoshop and through the printer, and a special fabric, it looks more like a string. It prints out like what you see in the next picture, where it's kind of bubbly, and it prints out the garment in the exact way that you have it. You created it on your Illustrator or your Photoshop. So this is also showing how it creates a 3D dimension. So this is an example of how digital printing is being used in the fashion industry. Iris Wang Hepburn. She is a Dutch fashion designer, and these are some of her pieces. They were used in the Paris Fashion Weeks, and there's a link right there that you can see all her different collections and how she uses this way of printing. It's very interesting and super fashionable. And we have another designer. He is Daniel Christian Tang. He is a Canadian, I believe. Yep, he's Canadian, and he does also garments, but I wanted to focus more on his accessory pieces because they're really, really interesting. So these are some of his neck pieces, and you see the shoulder pieces that are being used. And this, again, is all happening through starting on Photoshop and starting on Illustrator and seeing how you want to create your pieces. This is really big in the fashion industry right now because people are starting to come up with the idea of, do you even need to go shopping? Can you just stay at home, print out your actual clothes? Instead of going out when you're traveling and bringing a luggage full of your own clothes, can you just, in your hotel room, pop out your computer, bring your printer, and just print out what you want to wear that day? So it's a really interesting topic, and it's really interesting to see how fashion designers are using it on the runways, and who knows if we're going to actually see it more as we get into the future, I guess you can say, and as the years go on. Are people going to actually use technology to print out their clothes? So, presentation, and this is just a page of my works cited, but that concludes my presentation and really just focuses on how technology has influence fashion and how it's going to probably even influence the years as they go on. So, thank you. I hope you enjoy.